It's Sarah. I'm back to talk about the liver. This is my super cute plushy liver from Giant Microbes. Highly recommend. I think he's super cute. I've not really gone anywhere, but I realized I've not talked about my liver for some time, and I just had my annual checkup with my hepatologist. So I thought, in the spirit of sharing about the whole autoimmune hepatitis journey, I will share a little bit of an update today. And so as a reminder, I was diagnosed almost 2 years ago now with autoimmune hepatitis and was very lucky to have caught it, given that my only symptom at the time is fatigue, although the blood test did show high AST and ALT. Started the treatment with azathioprine, and just a few weeks ago, I went back for my annual checkup. It was supposed to be earlier. I got COVID again. It was my second round of COVID. I'm fine. It was much milder than the first one, thankfully. So yeah, I just thought I'd talk about that a little bit. So what's been happening? Actually, as far as my liver is concerned, it's been going really well. I still get a blood test every 2 or 3 months, or I was getting a blood test every 2 or 3 months. And that was not just like the CBC, CMP, but it was really monitoring, and I have my notes. Watch my videos. You know, I always have my notes. The AST, the ALT, 6 TGN, and 6 MMPN, which are the metabolites. So those had been trending in a really positive direction, and they have stayed in the normal range. And actually, I think it's the AST is lower than it's ever been before. And that's great, because that means from the blood test perspective, not seeing a lot of active inflammation. Now, the liver's a complex thing, and you can get some mixed results, which I'll talk about in a second. The other thing to remember is, like, the liver, he's not full size. The liver's huge. And so even when it comes to a biopsy, it could, you could get different parts of the tissue. It doesn't mean it's uniformly in one state or another. You might have that fibrosis, so the stiffening and hardening of the tissue, maybe over here, but not over here where the biopsy is happening. But so the first thing to look for is the blood test. And the metabolites are important because azathioprine can cause toxicity to the bone marrow and to the liver. Again, friendly reminder, azathioprine is for kidney transplant patients, not for people who have autoimmune hepatitis, but we're thankful, we'll take it. So that was the first thing that was really positive, which is like the blood numbers were showing that I didn't have toxicity, and that the STLT were now sit in the high teens, low 20s. So like that's really positive. The next step was doing the FibroScan. So if you've not had a FibroScan, it's, I would say, probably most similar to an ultrasound. So they use the wand on the liver, and then it sort of does these pulses, and the pulses take pictures. And then from that, the way that the cells are lined up, the doctor will look at it and say, judge the stiffness and the hardening of the liver. I lay down for this. And if you had that FibroScan, it's so weird. It's like lay down, cross right leg over left, and then like reach up to do maximum exposure of the liver in the rib cage. And then it's always this, I always end up feeling breathless because you have to like inhale and then hold, or exhale and hold. So like the lungs are interfering. Imaging's hard. Imaging's not always straightforward. So the good news is that generally the FibroScan looked good. It's varied. So even though it didn't look perfect in all places, like there could have been, there's probably some, so zero is no damage for cirrhosis, probably like some stage 1 stuff in there. But as it's always been, autoimmune hepatitis is looking at a couple of different factors. You can't just look at the liver stiffness. You can't just look at the metabolites or the AST and ALT in the liver. AST, ALT, liver enzymes. So I had come in really with just one major question, and that is this the right dose of medication for me? And my perception has been that I've been a lot more sick in the last year, and I've not enjoyed that. Yeah, I got sick, pretty sick 3 times, and then recently the second round of COVID. There's also this sense of how my experience was of being sick more. And the reality is, like, by the blood test, my immune system is pretty healthy. So I love my hepatologist, Dr. K is great. And he was like, no, you're fine. Um, you're just going to get sick. And given that we had a couple years of COVID with limited contact, it's not a surprise that I'm not in my best shape. So the question was, okay, with 75 milligrams of azathioprine a day, what are the trade-offs in changing the dosage of that medication? So if we go completely off of the medication, 60% of patients, he said, relapse in the first 3 months, and then about 4% each month afterwards. And that sounded like a terrible idea. I know some people have really bad side effects with any of the medications that you might be taking for this, and I don't. So that's not something that I'm trying to mitigate. I'm also not trying to get pregnant. I think the information on pregnancy continues to change. When I first started taking the medication, he said, do not get pregnant on this medication. There seems to be different schools of thought. So if you're hoping to become pregnant, talk to your hepatologist. And so he had asked, is that a consideration for me? I said, no, it's not a consideration for me. And really the only way to know for sure the current level of liver damage is to get a biopsy. He said, be happy to order one. And I guess the main question was, can I go down and take less medication? He said, yes, actually. If I had wanted to, I could, given my numbers, given that we're not seeing a lot of damage on the FibroScan, I could go from 75 milligrams to 50 milligrams. The trade-off, though, is that now I'm in a stable state. So based on the health of my liver, I can go to annual appointments with them, which is just like, are you kidding me? Super exciting. So he said it's actually kind of a trade-off where we can reduce the dose to 50, but then that will mean monthly blood tests again, going to see them every other month. And in some ways, you're like, that doesn't sound that bad. But this is just a busy time in life right now. Professionally, personally, all the things that all of my goals. And like, it's a whole morning to go and see the hepatologist. You're like, I'm trying to fit this in between work and life and travel and all of that. And so I guess where I land is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So eventually I would like to reduce the dosage, but because I'm not showing the toxicity, because my numbers are good, because I don't have any side effects, I'm just going to let it sit for now. The cost of changing it and doing all the extra monitoring doesn't feel worth the gain at this point. And this feels like it'll be a year-to-year consideration. I'm still just, 15 months into remission, which seems like a long time, but it sounds like they'd really rather see 2 to 3 years. So me being me, of course, I want to like push and see how fast can we have this happen. That's not great. Yeah, so don't move too fast, is I guess what I'm left with, and try not to over design it. This is the story of my life, is just how do I make it better? So the other thing that I've been, so that's been good. I've been keeping up on, again, like all of my blood draws. And the other challenge I've had has been skin related. So I have a new dermatologist. She's great. Love her. As you can see, I have no pigment in my skin, and it's also April, which means I've not been outside in the sun. And even though I'm sitting in the window, I'm wearing SPF 60 on my face because skin cancer is my number one concern, given, as my dermatologist said, you're very moly. I have a couple moles that are a little suspicious. So we're watching those. So now I'm back on skin checks every 6 months. This was another thing that I didn't know. I ended up with a series of like teeny tiny little warts on one of my legs. And that's also related to like the slight immunosuppression. So I feel really happy to be in a maintenance point with the disease, and it doesn't mean you're not doing anything. It means like still doing all of my proactive visits with my other doctors, dermatology, full skin checks twice a year, and just being really conservative on what we're choosing for that. And then now the good news is I can do the hep panel blood draw every 6 months. And so the next year I'll get to go in and see Dr. K again. So I feel very happy that I'm still in this place. If you're noticing like hesitation, I've been having some challenges on the microscopic colitis front. But that's a different video. It's just for my liver peeps. I will continue to just like sing the praises of the AIHA. So the Autoimmune Hepatitis Association, this is a nonprofit. I think it's ahep.org. They're dedicated to providing community and connection for patients and caregivers of people with autoimmune hepatitis. They have new patient support groups. They have a conference. So if you go to their YouTube channel, I found it really helpful to hear about the latest and greatest research that's happening. If you're newer to this, you can hear patient stories, which was helpful. And then this I will definitely plug. I just signed up to be a mentor through the mentoring program. So there are mentors and mentees, and you're matched together. And the idea is that you don't feel so alone, that you can find somebody to talk to about autoimmune hepatitis. Obviously, we're not here to give medical advice. It's, for me as a mentor, it's just really a lot of like listening and connecting, validating the experiences, and by and large, just encouraging people to advocate for themselves. Again, I'm not a doctor, but the biggest thing I learned from this process is how to advocate for myself with physicians. And that's something that I continue to do wherever I go. So that has been really helpful. So Autoimmune Hepatitis Association, highly recommend. And then the other thing I've been doing is just continuing to unwind a lot of the myths and mistaken beliefs that I had. I have really enjoyed 2 podcasts and a book. The first podcast is called Conspirtuality, and it talks a lot about health misinformation. They also do a lot about spirituality influencers, so like conspiracy spirituality. They do some really interesting stuff. Some of it can be very academic, some of it's very much in the new age world, but I've appreciated listening to that podcast because it's helped me understand some of the pseudoscience that was a trap for me. And related to that is another podcast that you might have heard of, which is Maintenance Phase, probably one of my favorite podcasts. And I listen to 30, 40 different podcasts. I'm always wearing like headphones or listening to them in the car because I just love learning. But Maintenance Phase talks a lot about health and wellness trends, everything from the biases that are in our healthcare system to like cleanses or these weird health products that Gwyneth Paltrow wants to sell you. So that was really helpful for me in understanding and again, continuing to develop critical thinking skills. The book is called Saturated Facts. It's Dr. Is, and it's Idrees Mughal. I can put a link in the bottom, but he's Dr. Is on Instagram and TikTok. Of course, I watch TikToks on Instagram like an adult, have to do it right. But I love Dr. Is because he has really tries to combat medical misinformation, mainly around lifestyle, so diet and exercise. And he, takes videos and breaks them down part by part about the misinformation. Saturated Facts is the book that I needed when I was going through all the dietary stuff. I wish I had it. So again, continuing to expand my awareness. And what ends up being really hard is you realize for a lot of health and lifestyle and feeling better, the answer is it depends. And the answers where we know we're kind of boring, like sleep, do some sort of physical activity, eat some sort of balanced diet, and like maybe some like mindfulness, prayer, gratitude, whatnot. So those are not fun and exciting habits, but I feel like those are the things that are keeping me going. So liver and I am very happy. Liver and I are really happy. Things seem to be going well. So I did want to pop on and give an update because it could have gone in the opposite direction, but it didn't. And liver and I are doing well. Hoping to do a video soon about the microscopic colitis, I think, again. Do you ever have one of those days when you're just like, oh, we're doing this again? And it's like, oh, I think we're doing a version of this again. So yeah, I hope you're well. And if you are at the early stages of your journey, maybe autoimmune hepatitis is new to you, go back and watch my other videos about being diagnosed, about before I was diagnosed, getting into this process. Go and find a mentor. Go join the Autoimmune Hepatitis Association. If you do have autoimmune hepatitis, you can do this. You will do this. And you're going to learn. And yeah, I just pray that you're safe and well. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.